Hello, welcome back everyone. We're here for Aetheral Space 1.4.
So, you returned. Unless you click this video first without reading 1.1 through 1.3, which would be really
Why would you
weird.
do that? Why would you do
Yeah.
that?
This is like the equivalent, this series is the equivalent of like when people put like manga videos up as like animated videos on YouTube. Except there's no music and there's no like rumbling of the panels. It's just a raw reading with reactions. Consider this the director's cut edition of Aetheral Space.
Right, so Darnell, what happened last time?
All right, so last time I remember Dragon had been kidnapped, and he could hear through his place. He was like trapped in a pantry or something,
Yeah.
or what used to be a pantry, and he could hear Skipper, and he could hear Ruth, and he heard a man and a woman. But then he found out that they were actually two personalities in one body, Bruno and Serena. So after interacting with them for a bit, he talked to Skipper, and he was surprised to find Skipper actually embarrassed him, despite not seeming to be a cogitant himself. He was a very sharp individual, and he was piloting a ship made for two, even though he's only one man. And then Bruno interrogated him, and we found out that Bruno possesses Aether, his color being purple. And after Dragon being Dragon, it seemed like they were getting ready to land on Kalis Brek. And if I understand right, Kalis is the system, so does that mean Brek's the planet?
Kalis Brek is the name of the planet, yeah, but that's just the naming scheme in this location. So there are two other planets that are Kalis, and then the planet name.
So I imagine this chapter will be the landing as they're landing, or like shortly after landing.
We'll see.
Yeah.
As usual, let's have Darnell begin.
The function room aboard the ship was apparently seldom used. The last time had been a barely attended press conference marking the 10th anniversary of its launch. Sometimes it was used for spare storage when the hold was full, though crates tied down next to bolted down tables and chairs. There was still a function, though, so the name was still correct. It was serving a different function right now, however. Oh, shit, is this another perspective? A toy Muzazi sat there, hands balled into guilty fists on his lap, as Minister Goli berated the gathered crew. "On your ship," the tall man said, marching back and forth as he worked himself into a lather. "On your watch! Under your very noses!" With the last shouted word, he turned and slammed his metal fist onto the table, leaving a sizable dent. His usually well-structured gray hair was in shambles, his skin an angry shade of red. Someone audibly gulped. When the minister spoke again, he was murder quiet. "I would like," he said, "an explanation." Muzazi stood up. As the last one to see the victim, the fault was with him and him alone. "Sir," he said, "I claim full responsibility." Goli cut him off. "Were you operating the security systems?" "No." "Were you assigned to guard the prisoner?" "No." "Were you firing the turrets?" "No." "Then sit back down and stop wasting my time, special officer." Muzazi nodded and sat back down. If a minister of the supremacy said so, then he truly wasn't at fault. People did not rise to superior rank by being incorrect about such things. Minister Goli took a deep breath, calming himself a little as he sat down. "The kidnapping of a supremacy cogitant, one sent to us by the central government no less, is not a good look. If this gets out, Kalis' position in the body will be severely impacted. This cannot get out of the system until the situation is resolved. Am I clear?" One of Goli's advisors shifted uncomfortably in their seat. "Sir," he said, tugging at his collar, "I'm sure the central government would want to be informed of this as soon as possible." Goli waved him off. "They will be informed. Informed that a minor incident took place, that the abducted individual was promptly recovered, and that the offenders were captured or, preferably, killed." The advisor half stood up from his seat as if he was going to argue further, but sat again a second later, eyes down. "Yes, sir." Muzazi watched the display with deep admiration. The duty of the body, the assembly of ministers, was to execute the will of the Supreme, and so he was also an expert on executing his own will. The ultimate expression of power was the world taking on the shape you desired, a world where the virtuous prevailed and the evil suffered, where incidents like this could never take place. That was what Muzazi desired. So we've got our righteous good hero, our foil to what's going on over on the other side. "Special officer," called Minister Goli. Muzazi stood, snapping to attention. "Sir, I am exercising my authority of ministerial override. You are to put your current assignment on hold and proceed down to the surface of Kalis Brek. The system is on lockdown. If the kidnappers are anywhere, they will be there. He nodded. I will execute them without fail. See that you do. Once you're on the surface, you'll be under the temporary command of Lord Mayor Valit.
Have him help you. Correct that, sorry.
I meant Lord Mayor Raquel. Have him help you organize the search. Of course, you're dismissed. Proceed immediately, Gully said, turning away from Muzazi and launching into a new rant targeted at the crew at large. Muzazi left the room and entered the outer hallway, muffled shouts following through the door behind him. His hand brushed against Luminescence's hilt, tracing the tiny crack in the woodwork there. I assume that's his sword?
Yeah, he's the kind of nerd that names his sword.
Hey, I name my swords. The coward Ruth Blaine's work. The Aether application she'd used at the end of their short duel just before fleeing like a rat had some kind of reflective function. The force Luminescence had exerted had rebounded against it. A difficult ability to handle, but now he was prepared for it. There was no shortage of ways to attack indirectly. Marching down the halls to the secondary hangar, Muzazi checked the news on his script. The People's Word had no information regarding the incident, nor did any of the biased lesser news channels. So far, at least, there had been no leaks. He rubbed a hand over the back of his head. During the duel with Ruth Blaine, he'd suffered a nasty blow to the back of his head, the result of flying backwards into a wall. The ship had a plentiful stock of panacea, so the wound had been fully healed. But the feeling of having fungus sprayed into your wounds was strange all the same. Popcorn.
The small single-occupant craft Muzazi had arrived on, the Cold Spot, had already been prepared for launch in the hangar bay. It was designed specifically for use by special officers, just enough room for them to sit in the cockpit and transport their personal equipment. He tapped a button on his script and the cockpit roof slid open, allowing him entry. Climbing in, Muzazi lay down on his back, allowing the roof to slide back over his body and, a second later, display half a dozen holographic consoles with which the craft could be piloted. Muzazi was often grateful he wasn't claustrophobic. In more than one way, the Cold Spot's cockpit was like a great glass coffin. "Computer," he said, voice surprisingly loud in a small space. "Responding," the synthesized force replied. That was their voice. Let me just change that. "Autopilot to first available government landing on Kalis Brek. Wake me when permissions are required." "Roger, roger," it said chirpily, followed swiftly by the sound of the engines powering up.
I can't believe you stole my phrase that I stole from Star Wars.
"Roger, roger."
Roger, roger.
A low rumble that quickly grew intolerable. Muzazi slid a finger across one of the displays and cancelled the outside noise. With another finger, he turned on the audioscape of the forest, birds chirping and leaves rustling. Basking in the quiet peace, Muzazi closed his eyes. He had much to consider. Ruth Blaine could not be allowed to continue living. Muzazi didn't care that he hadn't beaten her. That could result only from his own deficiency. But by abandoning their duel, she had refused to prove that she was superior to him. Escape was the victory of cowards. Strength existed for the purpose of enforcing your own will. It formed a great net that bound those without power, preventing them from falling into the abyss below.
I'm feeling some influence from various forms of media. Perhaps related to a certain Eastern culture.
What do you mean?
I'm just saying it's very anime.
He's a very anime character, yes. Protecting the weak was the single obligation of the strong. Without such protection, how else could the weak become strong as well? Regarding Hadrian, Muzazi had shared but a single conversation with him, but you could tell just from that he was a loyal servant of the supremacy, devoted to its advancement over his own. So the thing about Muzazi is very gullible.
I was about to say! Yeah, Dragon really cares. That was like the opposite of Dragon in Chapter 1. He's like, I only want my own fucking happiness.
He could not allow harm to come to the boy. So yeah, he's got Muzazi. He's got some good. He's got the good spirit, but he's not very smart.
Dragon, loyal servant of the supremacy.
It's not that he's smart, but he's very trusting.
He's the future of the supremacy. Meanwhile, Dragon, man, I don't want to do shit. Fucking Dragon. Dragon, the fucking Bruno Mars lazy song starts playing in his head.
So, Augustus Raquel, Lord Mayor of Kalis Brek, sat at his desk with his head in his hands. He had just received some very bad news. A special officer was coming down into his jurisdiction. Why? Was this to do with the lockdown that had just been announced? A bead of sweat ran down the back of his neck. What had they found out about? His dealings with the hyena, the deaths of those reporters, the missing funds. He couldn't come up with a defence until he knew how heavy the executioner's axe was. The Lord Mayor's office was right at the top floor of the Hart Building, a cylindrical tower of light and glory which rose far above the capital city of Breck-Core. The thing was so big that it had been lowered down from space, driven down like a stake through the jungles that surrounded the city. A symbol of the Supremacy's accomplishments, of his accomplishments. You couldn't allow them to take it away from him. Measures would have to be taken. If there was somebody behind this, it was Golay. The minister had hated him for years, always wanted an excuse to remove him. If he got rid of Golay, perhaps the problem would go away. The empty minister position that would leave was quite enticing too. Possible, yes, it was possible, but difficult. We'd have to plan carefully to survive this. Ricard glanced at the information he'd managed to pull together about the special officer on his way. Atoy Muzazi, crownless. Well, I don't know if I mentioned this before. Crownless basically means not one of these subspecies. It's just normal, vanilla human.
Right.
A colony boy who'd attended a traditionalist combat school on Paradavarin. Promoted to special officer after distinguishing himself in battle against the Shark-Tooth Pirate Syndicate. Well regarded for his work in the field. That's what it said at least, but it didn't make sense. The Lord Mayor was very proud of his information network. He'd made a great many friends throughout his time in supremacy, and those friends were always happy to pass him files they really shouldn't. They knew better than to refuse him. It had never failed. Until now. There were some files, of course, recent engagements and reports regarding the special officer's conduct. But apart from those recent filings, there was nothing. No classmates, no friends, no one who had actually witnessed Atoy Muzazi. In reality, there was a blank void where the official records insisted a life was.
Atoy Muzazi was totally genetically created to be like a master soldier, probably with enhanced aether power.
It looked for all the world like this Atoy Muzazi had just popped into existence 2 years ago.
I'm calling it now. That's what happened.
Is that your prediction?
I'm calling it. Yeah, that's my prediction.
He dabbed at his forehead with his handkerchief, his breath staggered with anxiety. Just who was coming down to his planet?
Because Atoy Muzazi thought he had those memories too. They must have been implanted in him. To be a loyal supremacy soldier. Probably the first of genetic clones, like Clone War style, but mega awesome.
I will not say anything.
That's my prediction. I'm locking that in.
Yeah, so what did you think of this, the events?
I liked it. A bit short.
Yeah.
I would have liked a little more meat, but hey, there's always next week. And I'm interested to see where it goes, see them kind of collide forces. It was nice to get a bit more about Muzazi, because he was kind of skimmed over in the first chapter in favor of Dragon. And then we had an epic fight with Blaine, but we still didn't get too much of his character other than, you know, he was honorable. So it's kind of nice to get a little more look into his mind, as well as some foreshadowing into just what is he.
Yeah, and there's some stuff going on with Muzazi.
Yeah, and of course, as you know, if you don't want to listen to us, you can always go to Royal Road.
You can check out Royal Road.
Yes, I would highly recommend going to Royal Road.
Royal Road.
And linking this video or the Royal Road link to your friends.
I'll find out if you don't.
Oh my god, if you link this to your friends will be like the people we made fun of who clicked this video without the other three. You fooled them, finally. Epic prank.
You did it.
You did it. You're so funny. All right, viewers. And as always, if you want to see more of this, great, because there's more on the way. If not, sorry, sweetie.
Sorry, sweaty. Again, it's the same gag from last time. You
Sorry.
You wanted a new ending gag? Sorry, sweaty.
Sorry, you lose. We win. Bye.
Bye.